Hey everyone, it's Desiree and welcome. This is video 2 in our series for our Candy Kisses scrapbook album. And again, we are using that paper collection by Paper Rose. In today's video, if you're just joining today, welcome. Thank you for coming. There is a video before this where I show how to construct our album. Yes, we can make our very own hardbound album to complete our scrapbook album or for journals, whatever you're looking to do. Today we are going to create the base pages that are going to go on the hinges. They're not going to go on yet, but we're going to do those and we're going to set those aside. And then we're going to focus on the left inside cover and the right, also known the front inside cover and the back inside cover. We're going to get those completed today. And I believe we're going to get these completely completed. And what I mean by that is not only the base, the solid color, we're also going to add our pattern papers to these as well. When we get into our hinges, those pages, we're going to work on the craft color first, and then we're going to come back and put our pattern paper on. That just helps me to work through the pattern paper. I am known to make wrong cuts, just saying. And this way, that'll help me to know, okay, I want this pattern paper here based on the design that I've created for the top of these base pages, because I may want a scene or I may just want a background print, and I'm going to walk you through that. But let's talk about those base pages that go on the hinges. And this base page will actually create a pocket as well. What you're going to need for each hinge are 2 pieces cut 7.5 inches wide and 8.25 inches tall. So if you remember, for the hinge, from top to bottom, I go 1/2 inch shorter than what the album is. Our album is 8 inches high, so my hinge system in there is 7.5 inches high. I want to make sure that I've got a little bit of leeway when I'm putting my base pages on. So by cutting this 7.5, let's put that like that so that's not confusing, and 8.25 inches tall, when I score at 1/2 inch, these will be 7.75. And you'll see what I mean as we continue on. So you'll need 2 of these for each hinge. So you'll need a total of 8. I've always taken care of cutting the pieces, so you'll see the stickies here. So if you want to pause it, you'll be able to see for your measurements. I'm going to grab my scoreboard again. And along the 8.25 inch side, and this measure, so I know I'm at 8.25, I am going to score at 1/2 inch on both of them. Or you could score at 7.75, whatever you would like to do. Just make sure that you're 8.25 inches along the top when you're scoring at 1/2 inch. Now, the papers that I use for the base pages are not 65 pounds. They are 110 pound papers. I want them to be strong, sturdy, and have a solid base. This is really the only time, or one of the times that I will use the heavy weight, but I will use it for the panels inside. So I'll try to remember this is 110 pound, this is 65 pound. Because remember, as we create our flips and flops and pullouts and all of those things, we're adding layers to it. Okay, so now that we have these scored, I'm going to remove my stickies. And I'm going to burnish these down. So I'm going to get this folded. I'm going to grab my paper creaser or bone folder and just really burnish that down. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. And you can see, since it's a heavier weight cardstock, you've really got to work it. So I do like to burnish on each side. So now we have two pieces that resemble that. And we're going to flip them. So one side's going to have a fold here, the score, and the other side's going to have it on the left side. And we're just going to glue these two pieces together. For this, I do just use my liquid glue. I don't use double-sided tape. I find my liquid glue is just fine. I do make sure I've got not a lot of glue, but enough glue to cover all of this area from top to bottom and side to side. I set this down. I'm going to set my other piece in. And liquid glue is great because you've got wiggle room. And I'm just going to line these up, tap it on my table so that it's even. And then I'm going to push that down just until the glue settles in. And then I will open and varnish that down. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So I already have my base pages done. Just trying to take care of a lot of things so that our videos aren't too long, but I want to make sure you see all the steps. I'm going to flatten this out and then push up, because these will bow. So by coming from down here and pushing up, you're kind of helping that to be flat. You can see how this will bow, and then I just continually hit it with my bone folder. And now we have this oval shape. That is your page base. And if I bring in my album, I can easily just slide it right over my hinge. Now that's not exactly how it's going to look, because we will line it up to our double-sided tape. Make sure that we're even. Make sure we've got the good border for top and bottom. So basically, our book is 8 inches high. Our hinge is 7.5 inches high. And these pages are 7 3/4. So I get this tier that comes up so that I can still have the border of each of these pieces. All right, so we'll be visiting these again. I'm going to set my album up just a little bit here, because we are going to work now on these two sides to create what we're creating on these panels. Okay, so for the left, oh, and let me show you. So here are my base pages. You will see I use paper clips. I love these clips because they don't get snagged on any papers when I'm clipping them on something. And I am a fan of sticky notes because these types of projects slow me down, and I enjoy that. Because you want to make sure that you know what's going on. Like, I know here that this is going to be my opening, because when you put this down onto your hinge, just like this, there we go. and we secure that in place, this side is still opened. So it creates a very large pocket, which is really nice. But I also like to note or let myself know that this is my top. So this would be, of course, my bottom. This is side 1. This is going to be side 2. And by knowing that this is my opening, when I go to put that on my hinge, I can put my hand right in here, because there's going to be lots of layers on each of these. And you want to make sure you are going into this opening of your base page when you put it onto your hinge. So these are all ready. I'm going to put them off to the side because we're not quite ready for those yet. And we are going to focus onto the left side. So with our, and I already have my pieces cut. I'm going to start though with the base. So we haven't covered the inside of our albums yet. And we want to do that first. We want to make sure that that is done. Now, I've got pieces here for pockets and everything else. And I'm just going to verify my size when it comes to this. Yes. Because you should always check your measurements. Now, I'm going to have a pocket down here. I'm going to have a flip and so forth. So I'm good with just having base papers for my images. So to start off, I'm going to take this piece, and because it's the base into my cover, I am going to use a couple pieces of my double-sided tape, because I don't want them to move or anything like that. And again, it's just a couple pieces just to get it secured in there. I'm going to burnish that down. Going to take off the release paper. Now, because our front cover and our back cover are 8 by 8, my piece is cut to 7 3/4 square, because that's going to give me just a little bit of border. I just like to have, just like in card making, I love to have mats, and that's kind of what I'm doing in here as well, just getting that edge all set. Again, a little bit of glue, just going up and then coming down on top of the double-sided tape so that I can have that wiggle room. I'm going to take this panel and I'm going to place it down and center it onto our inside cover. I'm going to pull in my brayer again. I'll move my tags off to the side here. So remember, 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. It's 1/4 inch shorter than what our cover is. And that's how I make all my cuts. I go down 1/4 inch. So now we have that nice cover, and we'll have another one over here. And I did use 110-pound weight for that. Again, just adding more and more strength as we go. What I want to do next is get my pattern paper on here. Now, my pattern paper that I've chosen for this, and I'm going to get my cutter up here, so I'm just moving a few things. Is this piece here, but I want the top part because we're not going to see the roses. I want to save that. So I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer. And since this piece is 7 3/4 by 7 3/4, you can cut your piece to be 7.5 by 7.5. Absolutely. Now, you can also, because if you're not sure how much paper you're going to need or how big your album is, if you look at the pieces that you're going to have, like I know that there is a bottom pocket that we're going to create for this. And that, of course, is going to sit right along that 7 3/4 piece. You can set your pocket down and measure to say, come down, you know, like 3/4 of an inch and say, well, I only have to cut this to be 5.5. And that will save your paper. Or you can just cut that entire piece. It is your choice of what you want to do. I am actually going to cut this to be 7.5 by 5.5. Okay, so 7.5 by 5.5. And I make notes. Absolutely. I make notes when it comes to my cuts. So you can do any way that you want. So we're pretty much going to be creating this together. And I'm going to put saves paper. Okay, so we're going to move this. And I mark my papers because I start looking at my papers and saying, okay, what do I want for my front? What do I want for this? I'm working in the basics section right now. When I start looking at my, the main collection, that's when I'm going to pull out, okay, I want this for my cover. I want this for the back, and I want this for the spine. So it is a process. I work ahead, but not too far ahead. I'm going to make this cut at 5.5, and I'm going to set this aside. And then I'm going to cut this at 7.5. And we're going to save this one too. We save all scraps. Even the little tiny strips that we cut off too, if we cut those off, we save those because you never know what we're going to use. I'm just going to shift that over just a little bit. Matter of fact, I'm going to move that off to the side here. So you're going to see me constantly just pulling things in. And now I'm going to use my glue and I'm going to glue this up into and onto that panel. We're just going to center that. We're not going to do any distress inking. I know, surprising. Most of you know I love my vintage photo. Again, always making sure that glue's getting close to the edge. And then just putting a little bit sporadic on the inside. And as always, with glue, with liquid glue, you've got time to move it, but you don't have too much time. So get it set and then press down. Because when you're putting a scrapbook album, you want to look at, okay, the biggest pieces first, what's going down first, and then build yourself from there. You can create your album just with all your base pages and then go in with your pattern paper. But like in this case, the pocket's going on top. So I don't want to lose anything that's going on when it comes to any of my images. What's also going to happen on this page as well is I have a top flap. Okay, and what I should have done was put that flap down first, but that's fine. We're going to leave that like that. See, it's a mistake. Always look at your pages to say, okay, what needs to go down first? So this should have gone down first and then our pattern paper. But that's okay, because we're going to make a design up there, and we can do that. So I'm going to put my flap in now. This piece measures 7 3/4, the same as what our base was, and 5 1/4, and we scored at 1/2 inch. You're going to see scoring at 1/2 inch a lot throughout this. And you can see I have it marked as top flap. I'm going to add my glue. And we're going to get this up here now, and I'm just going to line it up with our base that we just put. Come in with my bone folder just to burnish that down. I'm now going to put my pocket in. This measures 8 3/4 by 3 1/2. Along the 8 3/4, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch and 8 1/4. So we're going to get these 5 1/2 inch flaps, and then along the 3 1/2, we're going to score at 3. So you're going to have it on 3 sides, or you can score at 1/2 and you'll just have the same thing. You'll just keep turning that. So I'm going to get my bottom pocket set in place. Again, adding my glue. On all the sides. And remember, the glue spreads out. We're going to get this set in place. I'm going to set the bottom. I'm going to tuck in these side pieces. I'll set that down. And again, I'm lining it up along that base piece that we set first. I'm pressing down. Your paper creaser or bone folder, that just helps give a little bit more weight to it. So now we have that. I'm going to remove my stickies. And you can see we have this flap, and it's flapping. We don't want that. What I've created is what I call a panel closure, and this measures 6 1/2 by 6 1/2. No scoring, no nothing, but this is a great way to close one of your mechanisms, and that's exactly what it's going to do. So let's focus here on this strip up here and what we want to put there. And I think what I actually do want to put is those roses up there. I think they'll look really pretty when you open it. even though they're coming down, I just do think that they will be pretty there. You know, I think I'm going to let that alone for right now. I want to think about that. So basically, we do have our right side completed. And what's nice is for this, we can pull one of those nice seams, but that is our closure. And you can see that when we set it up, it's not going to flap around. Let's do the same thing on this side. So this is the back right, whatever you want to say, inside cover. And this one's a little more involved because we are going to do a waterfall. So just like before, this is 7 3/4 by 7 3/4, same size. And I'm going to do the same thing just to get this piece down. I'm going to add just a couple pieces of my super strong 2-inch double-sided tape and get this in place. Burnish that down. Remove our release paper. And add our glue. I think she's clogged up because liquid glues do that just a little bit. Go over. And now we're going to get this set in place. And again, we're just looking to get that centered on all sides and then press down. This is where I'll pull in the brayer because it's a large piece. And I really want to make sure that this is down so that it's catching that flap from our hinge. There we go. Okay. So for our waterfall, and we do want to put a piece of pattern paper down here first. Yes. And I think we're going to use the same style. So I want to use this one again. You can see I have it labeled back inside. I do like the insides of my covers to match. I don't know. It's just me. And I think I'm going to have the roses. Now, that was 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. So we're going to cut this 7 1/2 by 7 1/2. Now, what I want to do first is cut off our strip. And I am going to save that because, see, we can use that. And then I'm going to flip it because now I want 7 1/2 from here all the way up. So always look at your papers when they're directional to make sure that you're cutting them the right way. Trust me. Ask me how I know. Just saying. Going to save that. And now I'm going to come across, and I want this corner, and I'm going to cut that at 7 1/2 as well. Now, this piece does need to go down possibly first, but I'm going to do the layout this time just to make sure. And I'm going to clip this into place while we play with our papers. Not going to commit yet. So again, for the waterfall, you're going to need 6 of these. These are cut 4 inches by 4.5. And along the 4.5 edge, you're going to score at 1/2 inch for each of these. All right. And what these are going to do is they are going to just come down the center. So that's why I chose the roses, because we'll see the roses coming out for each one. When you put your waterfall in, you're going to butt up against each other. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some repositional tape. Tape that down because I don't want the clip in the way. And then I'm going to grab another one. So repositional tape is just my friend. And I'm just going to come down just a little bit. And I'm going to tape that in place. And then I'm going to keep putting these in. I want to see where this ends. And we're just going to keep putting them in. And I'm going to keep my thumb there. I'm going to fold this down. And I'm going to slide that one up. And it's just button up to the last one that I put in. And you can see I got these 1/2 inch increments falling into play. And this is how we can just continue to play with paper. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'm going to hold that down. And I'm just going to tack those there. So now we've got our pieces in place because we have these closures. Now, we're going to be using a magnet, so you're going to see how we do that. Now, these measure 1.5 inches by 5.5, and at the 5.5 we're going to score at 1/2 inch. So what these are going to do is this one is going to come in here, go behind that one, and then this is going to come underneath this one. So see, these have to kind of come into play first so that they will wrap around this. Now, I also want to, I'm going to lift my tapes up. And I'm going to push that down just a little bit. So now I know where we're going. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my top one and I'm going to put glue on the inside. And I'm going to set this on the center of my top one. And I'm going to fold that down. Now it's going to stick up a little bit. That is fine. You want that to happen because I want this to look like a band. If you didn't, you could just put it on the top here and just line it up. So I know now that this one is my top one. Now we can get our piece in place. Now, by all means, if you don't want to use liquid glue to put your pieces down, you can certainly use your double-sided tape. Totally your choice. I'm going to get this centered onto my panel. And let that set. And we're going to set our first one into place. I'm going to put glue on the top. And again, there's many ways to put a waterfall in place. This is just one of the ways that I choose. I did decide to bring that down just a little bit. I am eyeballing this. If you want to use a ruler, you certainly can. I'm just eyeballing that. Getting that set. I'm going to lift this up so I can push this down. Use my bone folder. And now I'm going to set my next one into place. Again, adding my glue. And then just butting that up against the first one. And then real quick, bringing this down to make sure that I am even, because you want them all to be even. And then lifting this up, and you can see that yes, you're going to go a little bit crooked once in a while, and that's okay. Could be the way that I scored, the way that I cut. Anything is possible. We're going to set the next one down. Sorry you're hearing that phone. Lift up that. Set that. We're going to put our glue, and we're just going to continue these going down. Again, lining that up, quick putting that down, making sure we're lined up, and we are. You can make your waterfalls. I chose 6 panels. You can go with 4. You can go with 3. Again, we're going to set that down. Quick flow that down, get this straight, lift that up, and our last. And there we go. So now when we put these down, they're nice, they're even. We've got our band here that's going to come down. And then this one here is actually going to, we're going to put this down like this. And we're going to wait before we put the magnet in. And the reason being is because we need to put our pattern papers on. This is going to expand, so this could actually be up like this, and I don't want to set it so tight that it doesn't hold. But what I do want to do is hold this here. Let me move my sticky, because this is going to get glued down onto this panel because there is going to be something here. So this time I'm going to put glue on the outside. I'm going to grab that last one. I'm going to fold that down. And I'm making sure the two bands are lined up. And I'm going to have that come down just a little bit. Pull that back. Push that down. So now when this is here, that's there, or vice versa. They are now all lined up. So now we have our piece in the back set up. And for right now, I'm just going to take a clip and I'm going to hold that into place. Just like that. So that's not flippy floppy. All right. I'm going to move my papers. So now we have all of our papers. Now for this strip here, I'm going to continue those roses. So once that's in, I always like to re-measure. So this is 3, so that is going to be 2 3/4. And I always like to put an arrow to show up and down. And then if I measure this, this should be 7 3/4, and it is, and this is going to be 7 1/2. And you can mark on your papers because you're going to glue over that. I have had this layout going for a little bit, so I chose to do stickies back then. All right, so let's pull in my cutter. And I'm going to cut that strip off again. And I want this corner, so I want that to be 7 1/2 because I do like the border. And I'm going to go 2 3/4. So I want all of this. So we're going to go 2 3/4. And now that's going to sit there just like that. And we can get that piece glued down. Now, if you want your borders a little skinnier, then instead of cutting it to 7 1/2, you could have cut it to 7 5/8 by 2 7/8, and you would have a thinner border going around. But I do like the bold matte that has. So now you can see when we open this, and we're just going to add something going along up here, just to give it a little bit of contrast. I could even add, another piece of this if I wanted to, but I am totally okay with how that looks. I want a piece just to come out a little bit more when it comes to that. You can also make a decorative edge on this as well, using your craft, because we see this and it's going to extend off of that. But that's kind of why we also miter our corners when we have our flaps, because if we add a paper there, you're really not going to see that. If we had it flat, you would see that edge. So that's kind of why we do those miters there. Now I do want to look at what I want to put on that. And because this is a flip, this will be two-sided. We'll have pattern paper on this side, and we'll have pattern paper on this side. We get to choose a pretty pattern here and a pattern up here. And we can even continue that pattern coming down. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. But that is our closure, and this is where we're at so far. So when I come back, I'm going to have this cut. Nobody needs to see me constantly cutting papers. We're going to have this cut, these two pieces cut, and all of this cut out as well. So I'll be back soon. Okay. You can see how I look at my papers and how I cut them. You always remeasure and all of that. So going forward, I'll have the pattern papers already cut, and I'll talk about it as we're gluing them together. And that's what we're going to do now. For this one, for the closure panel, I've gone into the 12 by 12s, the original Candy Kisses collection with the seams. So I did make sure that I pulled out one of those 12 by 12s, and this will be for my cover and the back cover. How we'll figure that out. I'll choose something later for the spine as we continue to go through. So I just have my papers clipped. So let's go. I've already got my pocket down there. I'm going to now glue my papers into place for the flap. Now I used one of those strips that we cut off the base of the papers, and I'm going to set that right along the top here. No one will ever know that we made a boo-boo. And that's the beauty of paper, right? We don't start over. We just keep going to see what it turns out and how we can make it work for us. I did choose to go to the edge of the panel that is underneath the pattern paper, so it will just extend out a little bit. I'm going to make sure the flap can still fold. Now we're going to get our top piece in place as well. I'm going to save all of the decorating, the pocket embellishments, the mini tucks, mini pockets, and so on for each of these pages for the video just before the final flip through. Because that's the fun part, where we take all of the ephemera and we just keep adding it all throughout to create even more mystery when it comes to what's hidden here and what's going to be hidden there. Now for me, scrapbook albums are just albums for photos, but I also do believe that scrapbook albums can hold all kinds of memories, still journal, still have all of that capability, just like our other journals do as well. So I always add little tiny spins to them. So now we have our flip and we have a pocket there. I'm just going to move this up just a little bit. And here is our closure panel. So I added a little bit more to this. I do want to add splashes of black to this album. So instead of going down 1/4 of an inch, I actually went down 1/8 of an inch. So remember, this panel was cut to 6.5 by 6.5, that base. So this black is 6 3/8 by 6 3/8. So it's going to have a very, very small border of our craft cardstock. And that's going to frame a scene piece of cardstock for our piece. And I think that matte is just really going to make this image pop. Black just, for me, black just really makes all of the colors pop. And you can see it better. It kind of like frames it. So we have that side. And on this side, this is like a photo mat. So I have another piece of the black that we're going to set down on this. But since this is a closure, you know, I just want to add something a little bit special. And we're going to do the same thing with the black. Just get that centered. Again, we're not looking for perfection. And then I chose to pull in this blue. I think it matches. It's just a different shade of some of the other blues. But again, it's just that pop of color. And this could be a photo mat where you can put a couple pictures down, or even a single picture and journal next to it. Or this could just be a journal card, whatever you would want that to be. And again, I have just a thin border for both the black cardstock and the craft. But this is a nice substantial piece now with all of the layers that we have. So now when I take this and set this in, we have that design. We have the banners going across the top. So that creates a nice element. I'll probably going to put a bow on top of this so that it can be pulled. So that when you pull this out, this now flips up. You can put a photo here. You can put a photo here if you want. Your choice, you can put a photo here. And we've got a pocket that you can put other items in there as well. But that just keeps it nice and safe in there. Now we're going to move on to this and finish this section up. All right, so now we're going to move on to this side. Now it looks like it's all put together, but it's not. I just have everything clipped, and we're going to put magnetic closure in on this one. So I'm going to grab my little set of magnets here. See if that goes there. Now I won't lose them, but I just have everything clipped down. So let's start. We're going to save our bands. All right, because your bands, you're going to do that differently. And I'm going to, so I dug, for these, I went into the 6x6 paper pads. And I chose 3 different designs for the top so that you can see those there. And then underneath, I chose a cream. You could choose white if you want, and a black. So these could have photos or journaling, or you could put your photo on top of this, however you would want to set that up. So I'm going to get these glued into place on our panels. And again, we're going to save, make sure I don't put it on upside down. We're going to make sure that we save all of our decorating, because I'll be adding a lot of the ephemera and all of those pieces. I'm going to turn my album actually this way. So now I'll do this, and we'll just keep flipping them to the right. Again, I do like adding the black. I think it just makes some of the pieces pop in the color. And it's also a good way to not use up all of your paper, your pattern paper as well. So, you know, we're making an 8x8 album here. So we're going to use a lot of that pattern paper. So by pulling in your stash of solid cardstock, you can stretch that paper out, which is a good thing. And I also have these strips cut because I wanted to use the paper from the other side as well. And I'm going to put this so it ties the front, the front and the back together. And then these are just going to sit here, and I just need to snip that because I forgot, and that's okay. See, we have fun creating. Just clean that glue. We'll put that down. There we go. And while I'm here, I'm going to snip these down to 4 because that is the width of our waterfall. And again, I'm just using my mat, and I'm just going to take my scissors in up underneath and just snip those. We don't have to go crazy and measure everything out specific. Now that one I actually remembered. But if you just lay it down onto your mat and then just take your scissors, it will be fine when we cut it. And now we're just going to continue to add our layers. And making sure that we're putting our papers on the right way, because I have this turned to the side. Right? And I usually have like a baby wipe close by to clean up all my glue. Now for the pieces of the waterfall, they are cut with 65-pound cardstock. Because again, you can see just how much layering we're doing. So we're making these pieces, our pockets and everything else, stronger because we're adding so many layers to them. And then before I pull off the clip for the next one, I'm going to add my 1/2 inch strip. And press that down in there. I'm just going to take my nail to get that fold going, because we want to make sure that's there. Always check your pieces, make sure they're flipping the way that they should as you go. And if they don't, again, it's paper. It'll bend. That's the beauty of paper. It has two sides. It will bend. And again, I can just take my nail, or just take your, whoops, as I throw that in, your bone folder to fold that in. So making scrapbook albums are a lot of fun with all of the different mechanisms that you can create. You can bust through your pattern papers. Now I know this one, I can see this is already getting a little small. So I'm going to take my scissors and just trim this down just a little bit with my long shears. And I'm going to trim it down even more. Just so, because I think that one is just really going to fold up a lot. There we go. That looks perfect. And what's great with paper collections, you know, everything matches. I know I've always said that before. So you don't have to worry, is this pattern paper going to match this? Is this going to match this? You know it's going to. It's designed that way. Now I'm looking at my waterfall just to make sure that it's still straight, and we'll straighten all of this out as we go. I'm getting glue all over the place. Again, I'm just going to check my strips, and if I have to trim them down, I'm just going to trim them down. Long shears are great for that. Getting to the end. Yeah, you can see like a couple of these have gone crooked, but that's okay. We'll fix that. This is crafting at its finest. All right, and our last one. Oh, I'm going to drop it. No, I'm not. All right, let's go back. I did that. Trim that one down. Our last, and I'm going to put my last strip on that one as well, because we may put something underneath all of this. I'm going to put that just right there. Okay, now let's turn this, get our scraps moved here so that we don't pick those up. All right, now let's see when this flips down. There we go, we're okay. So it's just when it goes up, and you can see how much that expanded when it comes to this, you know, your waterfall. Now what I like to do is just come in with my bone folder and just keep working that. And again, we're training that paper to do what it's supposed to do. Okay, so now for our magnet, I want the top, the upper flap to be on top. So with that, I can put this piece down. So I'm going to do that. You kind of do the reverse when you put a magnet in. So we've got that. I'm going to still turn this to the side. Set that down. And I'm going to make sure that curve is set so that doesn't pop up. Now this one here, we're going to wait to put in. And for this one, we can put the black base in place because the magnet is going to be the top for this piece. And we'll get that set in place. Okay, so now our magnet. Going to grab 2, slide this up because that works, and I'm going to get 2 pieces of double-sided tape ready on my fingers. And then I'm going to slide one off. And I'm going to put it onto the tape. And I'm going to put that right here. Yep. And then I'm going to grab another one. This is a great holder for this. And I'm going to put my tape down, and I'm feeling, okay, this is rejecting that. I'm going to set that like that. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make sure they're lined up. And I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to push. So when I lift this, now I have my magnets in each of the spots that I need. All right, and the tape is going to do that. And then, now what I can do is I'm going to remove the release paper of this one. Just push that down, and I'm going to glue this piece on top now. And then our magnets will be set. I'm going to push around that magnet to make sure that the paper is going down, and the double-sided tape will also put all of that in place as well. I'm going to push around that, remove that release paper, and now get this piece down. Magnets are a lot of fun to work with, but you don't need them to create your closures. I use them a couple times throughout this project, but a lot of my closures are like the large panels like you saw on the other side that we have, or you're going to see tie closures using brads and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And there we go. We have our magnetic closure. We just haven't decided what we're going to do down here. There's something that I'm going to put here to cover up that band, but that just goes in place. And now we have our 2 sides in, and you can see why I do like 3/4 of an inch, because this is coming out pretty far. She's coming out pretty far on that. I probably should have stopped at 5. But she's going to go right up to this side, and I believe 8 is also, it's pretty flat anyway, so that's a good thing. But we now have our inside to the left and our inside to the right completed, and we are all set to move. So again, we have this panel here as our closure, we have our flip, and we have our pocket, and then a cute design with the paper. And then again, we've got the roses going along the bottom, and then here we have our waterfall with our magnetic closure, and we will decorate that with our ephemera. So let's look at what else we have, just to make sure, because again, I've got my notes. We are all set. I did not forget anything. As I said, the last episode before we do the final flip through will be all the embellishments, where we add the little tiny, maybe a bow here or a pull tab, ephemera decorations on here, or you could leave it just the way that it is. So I hope you enjoyed this. Going forward, everything will be cut, ready to go, but you'll see how to construct it and how you need to look at, okay, this needs to go down first, or this needs to go down first, then your pattern papers, and so forth. So for this one, you want to make sure that you put your pattern down first before you put your waterfall in. Now, you can just put your patterns on each side as well, and then you would have your borders. That is fine too. So there is nothing that's wrong. Okay, there's never a wrong way to do something. It's just a different way to do it. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, the products that I'm using and that I've shown will be linked down below, and if you have any questions, make sure you leave that down below as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you haven't yet, please make sure you subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell so that you're notified when the next video is ready, and make sure you hit that thumbs up. But most of all, enjoy the art that you are creating, no matter what that is, whether it's a card, whether it's an ornament, or whether it is an album such as this. Just enjoy the process and know that you are creating art. And most of all, always be creative in everything that you do every day. I will talk to you in the next video, and until then, please continue to stay safe and healthy. Till next time.